Hey there, welcome back to the Leadership Portraits podcast. I am very excited for you to get a chance to listen to today's guest. Barbara Heil-Sonneck has had an amazing journey, both personally and professionally. Her journey brought her from a small town in Germany to the United States several years ago. It also saw her develop a very successful corporate career before she left corporate and began her career as an entrepreneur. And in that career as an entrepreneur, she has had a great deal of success as well. She's built multiple companies. She's built a lot of really fantastic relationships and partnerships. And she's going to share a little bit of those insights with us today. One of the things that I really love about this conversation with Barbara, and just in knowing Barbara, is how she really cuts through the noise and helps us think about getting past things like perfectionism and feeling like we have to know 100% of everything before we can get started. She's really got this refreshing take on leadership that's all about calculated risk and not being afraid to figure things out as you go. I I'm pretty sure that you're going to get as many oh wow moments as I did from listening to this podcast. It was a great conversation that I really, really enjoyed, and I think you'll enjoy it as well.
I'm so glad you were able to join me today. I'm so excited about this conversation. You have had such an interesting journey, both personally, professionally, and through in leadership. And I'm excited to talk more about that with you today. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me, and I'm very excited to be here and tell a little bit more about my journey and where I'm planning to go.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us, you have such a fascinating story, I believe. And um, so you grew up in Germany, right?
That is correct, yes.
And you came to the United States when you were younger, and it was part of your both your personal and your professional journey. So do you want to, would you mind sharing a little bit of that? Because I think it's a fascinating story.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. So, born and raised in a small town called Würzburg, kind of like in the northern part of Bavaria in Germany. My parents actually, both of them come from Czechoslovakia, Slovenia, so kind of like in this area.
Mhm.
That was Germany prior, but Germany lost that all after World War II. So they were immigrants in their own country, if that kind of makes sense. So
Mhm.
they, lost everything, but then they had to start over from scratch. So I have been raised based on the values: you work hard, you show up, you're, dedicating, hardworking, and that were pretty much like the main, parameters I have been, and the values I have been raised on. Don't waste anything, and also don't stand out, right? So I think for longest time, coming from Germany, there was anyhow a directive, at least in our generation, not to be as proud to be a German,
Mhm.
because there were a lot of things looking back we were not really proud of. Of course, that changed over time. So that was it. Story-wise, I started in a smaller insurance company, worked my way up to be in marketing for a number one book publishing and magazine publishing company back in Germany in the computer industry, which then led me to an opportunity to work for Dell Computer, then transferred over and was hired by IBM, pretty much, and made a nice career there. So really a corporate story. And part of my career track was to go on an assignment. And I thought it will be Paris for sure, right? Headquarters, Europe, Paris. And I landed in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's kind of like in a high level, the professional side of my development. So a lot of what I have done prior was building up, and setting up new organizations to a certain extent in disruptive market, being like on the forefront of direct marketing and direct sales. So I always truly enjoyed it. So even I worked corporate, I always had the opportunity to be entrepreneurial because when something starts, you have much more flexibility in implementing what has been asked for. Add to my story of, what brought me here was that even back when I worked in corporate world, I always had this entrepreneurial spirit. So I always had a couple of things I did on the side, non-competitive to what I was full flooded and definitely, lots of working hours in my corporate environments. But in addition, I always, added on. So I worked for other companies on the marketing side. In my first marriage, that was back in Germany, after the wall broke down, we actually worked for the chamber. And what we did is we traveled over to the eastern part of Germany and gave some educational basic how to start your business education. Just pretty much like, we just got paid for our travel time. So that was our part of giving back. And of course, I truly enjoyed that. And I also could see the spark in other people. So always loved that. So I think in that element, an element of teaching gave me a good amount of pleasure in everything I touched. So there was always this, okay, there's something else I can do in addition and in the side. And for everybody out there who is considering to possibly move into a different direction, possibly stopping working for corporate, it does not always have to be, you have to stop and quit and jump. It can be done in a smoother, transitional way. I think the key is setting our goals and targets. So I feel, very strong on that. And I think rapid action drives also results, right? Often, if we're lingering too much and overthinking it, it takes too much time away. And I believe, I think one of my taglines is connect with people who raise your vibration, because I'm a strong believer of momentum. And you have to really run in that momentum and take action in that moment of momentum. That is actually also, this is like, I call it, it's contagious in a positive way. Because if other people feel that excitement, it is another way to easier step forward in moving towards positive results. So I feel very, very, very strongly on that part. So fast forwarding back to my venture here, finally, so I was I was divorced during the process of moving to the US, and no, was a good experience there. We parted as friends and finally met my Mr. Right here in the US. And after a while, also gave birth to my son. And that made me to put a little bit break on the career side, to take a break and really care for my son for a year and then go back into the corporate world. So the fantastic opportunity was I got promoted. The not so good part was I was back in the mothership, and that was not quite where I felt I can give my highest and best. The corporate companies I worked for has given me fantastic opportunity, but I didn't feel that that is my place. I'm such a doer, and I'm not really that making goals and numbers just because there is a bonus. I wanted to see impact. And so I felt we were not as aligned. So I took a package and then determined what I might do next. And that pretty much when was the start of the real estate investing journey, I am still at a different level, continued today. But that was the starting point out of the experience of renovating and flipping some houses or just renovating and holding property. I also started another company called Design to Sell, and that is an interior and home staging company, which is now run by my team very effectively for the last couple of years. So that was really then the first big jump into entrepreneurship.
What a fascinating journey. And I love, so you've really kind of been on both sides. You've done the whole corporate and moved up and was very successful in your corporate roles. But then I think you've had a similar journey to a lot of people that I've talked to who have moved into the entrepreneurial role. They find that they're no longer getting the I don't know if it's heart-centered. I don't know if it's there's something missing from their corporate journey that they really want to explore. And I always find that fascinating when someone really takes that. It's a brave thing to do because you're leaving behind some security for to really kind of take a chance. And I always love hearing those stories of people that have been able to do that and have been able to do it successfully.
Yeah, so and I believe, there's one word, courage, which,
Right.
I've always on my boards and my vision boards, because it requires courage, because you don't know what comes next. And I call myself a calculated risk person. So I'm not overthinking it, but I also believe you have to take action. You will not
Yeah.
have everything planned out, but you have to believe that you can do it. So that is a
Right.
that is a key element, and that is a key part as well. And that drives things forward, because often when we're really thinking about the statistics of failing entrepreneurships and businesses, some of that is also giving up too early, but the other part is also understanding how to grow a business, and that the information and the knowledge of financials plays a major role, right? There's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of passion moving the needle, but I think it is also important to understand how the numbers work and how growth work, right? The hardest
Mhm.
part is hiring your first employee, right? After you have
Mhm.
structure, then you're coming to that next growth level, right? Okay, so now you know how to hire people, how to hire a team. Then normally you're hitting another, ceiling when you're reaching, around the 1.5 million revenue, right? Often. And again, it depends on the business, and, there's always different elements, but then it requires a different skill set to scale. So I think that's, so it's like there's cycles,
Right.
and to a certain extent, you're also growing into it. But I never had, I jumped, I call it, I jumped and I started, to build my airplane a little bit around it. But I knew enough that I had all of the material to build it, and I need the basics, and only as an example, to pull things together so that no matter what, even if I have to have a parachute, there will be a safe landing. So, but you cannot have everything in rotation and motion and everything figured out. There has to be a point of action, and then it's backed up of growth. So if I know I have to get 10 contracts in a month, right? And I know exactly what that means to hire another person, it requires either for me to do more work, to come to that point, or get the other person as quickly as possible up to speed to make things moving and running. And so that's one part. Another thing which comes to mind is, and I think that is specifically a message to us women, is you don't have to know things 100%. It's okay to just know 65 to 70% of what is expected to you, sometimes even less, because, there are bright, amazing women out there and they can figure it out as they go as well. And I think that is a huge difference if we're comparing, like job performance and expectations there in general. I think we are feeling, we have to be 100%, and that is not the truth. So the perfectionism and is really hindering us to grow and expand. I feel that is as a key message to put out there into the world to help others and drive change in that department of perfectionism. Is hindering sales and it's hindering growth.
Mhm.
It has to be good enough and go.
Right. That is such a powerful message, I think. And, I think it probably contributes a lot to, we hear about imposter syndrome and we hear about perfectionism and we hear about all the things that are those limiting beliefs that keep us from moving and jumping and taking that next step. And I think that's such a powerful message to get out into the world, that you can actually learn as you go.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. I love that. I want to explore something that you mentioned earlier. I think you called it connection. So you were talking about early in your entrepreneurial journey. I love the idea that you don't have to be 100% entrepreneur or 100% corporate. You can kind of do it in parallel at the same time. But you mentioned building those connections. So, and whether you call it networking or relationships or, whatever the words are that we use for it, how do you go about, because those connections are so critical, whether no matter where your career path is taking you, those relationships and those connections. So tell us a little bit about how you have kind of built your network, your connections over the years, and how you really kind of use that and use it to bring value to yourself and your journey.
Absolutely happy to share. And connections play a major role in your growth as well. I
Mhm.
believe strongly that to grow, you have to be again brave to step out of your comfort zones and into rooms where, as an example, so I started in different industries, and when you start, you are nobody, right? Nobody knows you. It is like a starting point. So everything starts from there, and you're building relationship and trust in your clients and later in, I call them enablers, right? Pretty much like it's like power sources of feeding your sales funnels and everything you have set up. And I feel it's very important to be very clear of where your target audience is. So I'm going a little bit further because, we have the Red Sea. This is where everybody plays and where, pretty much, it's like, you have like the sharks there and they are kind of like everybody's fighting and there's price and there's value and everybody plays into this field. And I feel strongly is, where I like to play is moving over into this blue ocean. And what I mean with that is where there's more freedom and there is, so there is not, this price war. Your value and what you can provide is really appreciated. And there's often no question about the price tag you're putting on the services. And I know that seems, hard to believe, but I believe strongly that this is possible in all different types of industries. So I think one thing before I even knew that it was called red ocean and blue ocean strategies and all of the fancy work around it, I always try to see where you can separate. And whenever I felt I cannot win in this element of the market anymore, I moved on to the next. So now making the bridge to relationships and how important that is, I think it is coming down to the point of where is your ideal connection, that's now client-centric. And then we're talking about growth, which is a little bit a different strategy. But if you're talking about the business and the business we're running, I feel strongly it's important to see where you align in your vision, mission, and where it is a partnership, whereas it's just a transactional, okay, this is the price, you're getting the service, and we're moving on. So the goal is to really stay engaged in this cycle and in this relationship, and also see where you have growth opportunity. And growth opportunity is there where there's the desire to grow from both sides. So if you want to grow, and in the partnership, the people also like to grow and they see it as value in a relationship, then that is powerful. Because at the end, in a lot of businesses, you might not need hundreds or thousands of clients. It's that 100 to 150 who will make you very, very successful if you're moving it. So it's not about the big numbers. And yes, do you have to branding? Do you have to be out there so people can find you? Do you want to have customer satisfaction reviews? Yes, but really what counts are the results and the relationships in a lot of this relationship-focused businesses. So that's, I think, is one part. And always have in mind that you have to provide value first. Don't ask, build relationship, understand who the other person is, understand the needs of the other person. What can you do more? In an example of the real estate world, whenever I can, I also try to be a lead source, but only for my VIP clients. So if we know somebody who is doing something, yes, go there. In the real estate world of investment, it is about building relationship and knowing where other people, there might be a land deal, there might be a commercial sell, there might be other needs. So what do the people need so that you get invited into other groups and connection? So that's in general from a business perspective. Now, I have pivoted and redefined and rebranded myself a couple of times during my career. Being that, being on the executive pathway in corporate, moving into and technology, moving into a creative field where I always had a passion for, but no formal education, then running that business, staying in the real estate, continuing with the investment side, and then finding and hearing about other opportunities. So when you come at a point where you say, okay, you hit a ceiling and you're looking for other opportunities, I feel it's very important to make a clear switch move to get yourself into different rooms where nobody knows you, where the people there have all of the knowledge and you're getting started. So when I started venturing more into the real estate investment, syndication environment, when we're talking about whole different things and the vocabulary changed completely, it took me roughly 6 months just to understand the language, right? The LP and the IRR and the GPs and, what is the breakdown? And so it's like a whole different language and verbiage, in that segment. So I invested in my education, but also put myself into rooms where I know the best players are. And then it is, how can you get, to that next level? And it's about, again, providing and being of service. See where you can get some face time, but also you have to be, what's the interesting story to tell about you? And or researching the other partner. So it really comes back to being prepared for whatever shows up as the next opportunity. And I feel lucky that really in a time period of 1.5 years, a lot of things started changing, for me. But the only way to do that again is that the business I created, I had to figure out to get out of the day-to-day operation and
Mhm.
put myself in a whole different position so that I have time to invest into the other parts and other elements of business. And I feel as business owners, we often stay stuck in this one lane and try it and think we have to be the fireman of everything related to that business. But that doesn't mean growth. And even if you stay in that lane, the important part for growth and scaling is process, hiring the right people, and getting yourself out of tasks which are not the key components of the business.
I think you made an important point there also about the ability to pivot and change. And I think that sometimes, so things change. Things are constantly changing. Things are changing more rapidly now than ever before. And I think those people who are able to kind of recognize that change and pivot to move with it are the ones who are not only more successful, but more satisfied. And I think when I talk to people in different levels of their careers, the ones that are struggling the most are the ones that are kind of stuck in an old way of thinking, an old, they haven't been able to pivot. So I love that you talked about that, and that's such an important piece of being able to really grow. And sometimes it takes learning. Sometimes it takes, getting yourself into some classes, getting yourself into some other rooms, some new rooms, and meeting some new people. And so I think that's such an important message for anyone at any point in their career to, to be thinking about that.
I'm a big believer in your vision board exercise
Mhm.
every year, figuring out, the words. Mine is freedom. So my word of the year is freedom. And that is like manifested in, certain decisions, to what do I say yes, to what do I say no, if it's an
Mhm.
alignment of my goals and where I'm striving to. And I think that is a big part. And often I think we think too small. So mindset, of course, comes to play because until you truly believe it, nobody else will.
Yeah,
So it comes down to this basic, right? You have to believe, you have to see it, you have to see yourself in that position of win. Like you believe it, then others will start to believe it too, right? There
right.
are other opportunities where it is you can define in what segment you want to play. But in the growth and scalability segment, it requires a lot. And it requires a lot of discipline
Yeah,
because we can be busy all day long.
right. So
But
speaking of discipline, I'm always curious with leaders about their habits. So do you have any daily habits or weekly habits or anything that you do that helps you to kind of maintain your productivity or really kind of maintain um you have a lot of things going on. So what are some of the habits that you kind of rely on to help you kind of manage all of that?
it sounds maybe very simple and boring, but it's consistency and a schedule.
Ah,
Because it's consistency and a schedule of repetitive tasks who drive results. And I believe often, we can easily get distracted and don't get me wrong. I fall into that bucket as well. And I have to pull myself out of the bucket now and then because there can be shiny objects and wonderful opportunities.
right.
And honestly, yes, I have been distracted as well, but I know exactly what it does to the results. And that
Right.
comes back to understanding your numbers. And the numbers is not only the numbers on the sales and your P&L and balance sheet, it's the numbers of the results of where you want to get in other areas too.
Right.
I, exercise regularly. I am pretty good in what I am taking in, means, what I'm eating, and, try to, I'm not on a diet or anything, but I try to, get my body the things they need to stay healthy and active, because I love to ski. I always have been competitive in different areas of sport. And this is my release, right? Doing my sports, doing my exercises is an element for release. Reading a good book, right? So there is Audible when I'm in the car. I utilize, I give myself some downtime if it is needed, just for decompressing to a certain extent. But then I also like to listen. If I drive longer, I just listen to another Audible book, something which is helping me to improve. I can choose to listen to music, or I can choose to utilize the time for learning. And it's all the choices we make will be the
Yeah.
final end result of, how our life and lifestyle will be. If I love to do vacation, so I found a fantastic way to share that with a lot of good friends. I enjoy time too, but stay in my budget, because we're sharing spaces, so we're sharing companion tickets, so we're doing this. So I am very strategically also in how am I achieving my goals. And it does not always have to be, oh, I can't do that, or I can't do. There's a lot of ways we can accomplish if we're creative and thinking more
Yeah.
creatively in how we can get there.
So I'm always curious. One of the questions I always like to ask is, what advice would you give to your younger self? So if you were talking to yourself at 20 years old, 25 years old, what advice would you give to yourself?
Known much more about financial literacy. And
Mm,
I think that is a key element. I just knowing that the basic ways of just working hard and investing, or in your savings or 401k is not helping you with wealth creation. Just understanding things on the tool
yeah,
set of what is all available to us at a whole different level. And that, I think, is, I wish I would have known certain things earlier. And, as an example, the hardest way is to grow a company.
yeah.
If I would know what I know now, I would buy a company,
Oh,
start
that's
to
interesting.
scale that company to the next level, right? If I would know, that's one of my learnings, right? But that was not knowledge available to me, or I thought it was not even possible for me to
Yeah,
do, because I was not exposed to even to think that way.
yeah.
So I think that is one of the parts, because the hardest part is the setup. If you go
Right.
to a 1 million,
Mm,
1.5, right, it requires a different skill set to scale, which is then process implementation, metrics, KPIs, but also the opportunity to hire differently. Because, when
yeah,
you start, everything is so on a budget until you all figure it
right.
out, until all is set up. We have the highest at our design company. We have, I think, the best team we ever had. But that is also dependent on a much higher vision and different elements of conversation we have in our group. I think it's that, because since I started to think much bigger, everybody thinks bigger too. And the people we're
Yeah.
hiring, they're thinking different as well.
Well, you have to learn those lessons.
Yeah,
You have to grow, and you have to get better, um and know more about the market and everything to be able to hire the people
yeah.
that can really help you move to the next level
Level.
as well.
Yeah. But in
Yeah.
the merger acquisition space, as an example, it's not that you're taking over and the team leaves, right? You're still
Yeah.
working together with that knowledge side to
Yeah.
side. to help to expand, in a win-win situation, ideally, right? That would be the ideal scenario. But it's so much quicker to get to success,
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And if you find the right situation, you buy a really good solid team,
Yeah.
along with the company. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
that's
again,
great
a
advice.
lot of companies out there, they are really excellent in their drive,
Right.
but not on structure, process, and scalability. So
Right.
that's a whole different conversation. So
Tell us a little bit. I know that you're an author, you're a speaker, you're doing some really fascinating things out there. So tell us a little bit about that.
yeah, absolutely. So 3 years, roughly 3 years ago, as I ventured, into the real estate syndication market, investing into multifamily, also into, more land development, and also connecting with other companies from my prior engagements in technology. There were other opportunities, and I felt the knowledge I created over time in building the company, running the business, has a lot of transferable skill sets, which also
Mm,
translate into other industries. So take the example also of technology. You have a lot of product-driven people, and they are very engaged in their product. But then there is also, there might be a knowledge needed in regards to communication, positioning, and marketing, which kind of like led to other opportunities in, building team and setting up structure, around this organization. Everybody brings in different opportunities. So that led me to have some fractional opportunities as chief marketing officer and also board of advisors in some companies, which is when we're going down the road of, where does Barbara want to be next,
mm,
is really what I'm striving for, to sit on some paid boards of advisors to help and continue involved in companies and growth and success for people, and being able to really utilize the knowledge and all my learnings and transfer it just to different groups, and
mhm.
help them to benefit from some of this learning. So it's the power of the team who drives change. I don't like to be alone. I like the creative moment of amazing idea exchange and also opportunity. In addition, I love to align with people who are not only in it to win it for them, but
Right.
also in their vision mission are aligned with the growth concept of community impact. What I mean with that is, right, we had, we touched on merchant acquisition. We know that so many companies get bought, but that also they're losing that feeling of customer satisfaction. The service
Right.
level goes down, all of that part, and we're really truly looking at corporate structure, which I think is also a fantastic opportunity for people to really think and start businesses where they years ago nobody wanted to be in a more like bluish or service type of business, like cleaning windows, cleaning companies. But these are all amazing business opportunities if you run it like a business, not just, the workhorse behind
Mhm.
everything. So I think that is it's a big part. So there's always transferable skill sets, always something we can utilize. So, but that's my goal in pretty much, allowing and being part of other success stories and utilizing, and therefore my brain continuously being inspired. And I think that's the
Right.
other part. When I wrote the book, I can encourage, and I have been now in 4 other collaborative book launches, total of 5 books published, is writing down your story,
Yeah.
just, from your heart. And it was a very healing process for me to do it, because for the longest time, I did not want to tell my story. I felt, it's too vulnerable, with some of the experiences, but it was actually very, very healing and allowing to overcome, some of these mind blocks. And where we're also coming from is, I felt was another extreme push to move me to the next level.
Yeah. I also think that telling your story helps other people to be okay with telling their own.
Yeah,
So I think it's a very powerful way to put your information out into the world and to help encourage others to do the same thing.
absolutely. So coming again, pick your word of the week, of the year.
Mhm.
For me, it's freedom. Freedom.
Mhm.
Think outside of the box. Be comfortable to be very uncomfortable, whatever
Yeah,
you do, and
yeah,
challenge yourself. It's training. It's like you asked me about the routine. One of my routines is as well to be uncomfortable, do something I never have done before, and consistently stay in the learning path. Because I don't
yeah.
know that, I haven't done that, but I will try. So every year, I for sure do one thing I never have done before. Last year, I challenged myself a little bit more, did my 60 new things, right? And also celebrate that special year for me. But it doesn't, it was not to the extent. When I say I try something new, I try to really learn that skill.
Yeah.
And that is normally not done. It's not only an experience, it's a skill set. And so trying to challenge myself to learn something new. And certain things, after I have done it to a certain level, I will never do it again. And it's okay. Like I took singing lessons to sing at my mom's 50th birthday, years back, 55th birthday. And that was the most devastating, situation, 6 months singing lessons. And I did okay. I sang Diane Warwick, That's What Friends Are For. I couldn't eat. I was not really enjoying the whole celebration because I was so nervous, because singing is not really in my wheelhouse, right? There's this beautiful, wonderful people with what beautiful voices. That's normally not me. But you can do everything if you put your mind on it, and you can achieve a lot. You can learn to play the piano if you wanted to, not
Mhm.
perfectly, but you can learn to play a little song. Everything is possible if you put your mind on and just challenge yourself to be uncomfortable and be a constant learner.
That is one of the things that I love about you is this is what you do. And I know last year you did the 60 things, and that is incredible that you found 60 things that you'd never done before to try. What has been your favorite thing to learn throughout the years as you have done that every year?
And that's a hard one, right?
Yeah.
It's really because it's the same when you ask, whom did you meet? And, because there's always something new and we
Yeah.
live in the now. So I'm a person who feels strongly we spend so much time either in the past or of what maybe could be somewhere in the future, but I want to live in the now. It's here, it's
Yeah.
now, it's today, and I enjoy that, right? So today, you're my favorite person because we have the conversation. But what I mean is because it's the exchange of energy. It
Yeah.
is a conversation and also the opportunity to share my story. And hopefully, there are a couple of women, but also men out there and or to pick up and see, hey, that's exactly what I needed, right?
Yeah.
You read a book and it's very inspiring, like The Power of One More. So if we're, whatever we're taking, and you read it, and at that moment you pick up from paragraph 4 and 6, because that is where you are right now. And if you read it 2 years later, it might be paragraph 5 and 10,
Yeah.
because you are at a completely different state and
Right.
you are picking up different things because now you're ready for it. Before you read it, but it had no meaning. Now you hear it or you read it and you said, yes, exactly. That was my answer.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we wrap up, I would love to know So if the reader or the listener would like to know more about you, would like to know how to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to find out more about you?
Well, the best way is finding me on LinkedIn. The
Okay.
nice thing is there's only one of me, so there's no confusion.
Nice.
That's the
Yeah.
name. So so that's the name. And the other part would be to go on my website, Barbara, HS, the first two initials of my last name, .com. So these are the best ways to get in contact with me.
Okay, and we'll put all that information in the show notes for the listener. Just head over to the show notes and you'll find all that information there. We'll also include the links to your books.
Yes.
So if they're interested in those, they can find those there as well. So
Absolutely, yeah. If you're
yes.
inspired, read the story. Also, I think the two books, Rewire, Real Women in Real Estate, telling their story, how they started, and their journey, very inspirational. Or Powerful Female Immigrants. It's the same. It is about telling stories about women who came in this country to drive change for themselves and their families and building their legacy.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Awesome books. I've read a couple of them and they're really powerful stories. Well, thank you so much, Barbara. I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you sharing your story and your journey. And this is, you have such great insights to share, and I'm excited to be able to share this with others.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank you,
right.
Jennifer. Appreciate it.